Zeus vs Hades Part Woodward Sierra. Thunder on Olympus. When the king of the sky faces the lord of death. Two forms of power. One forbidden question. In Greek mythology, there is a question rarely spoken aloud, not because it is difficult, but because it is dangerous. Who is stronger, Zeus or Hades? Zeus, king of the gods, wielder of thunder, the one who overthrew the Titans, ruler of the sky and the divine order. Hades, the one who dwells in shadow, without a shining throne, without glorious temples, yet every living being ultimately belongs to him. One rules life in motion, the other rules eternal stillness. Zeus is worshipped through oaths, Hades is feared through instinct. And while Olympus has always believed Zeus to be the strongest, a quiet truth has existed since the universe was divided into three realms. Zeus has never ventured deep into the underworld. Not because of laws, not because of agreements, but because there are places where thunder is no longer the ultimate weapon. I, Zeus, the power of the victor. Zeus was not born the strongest god. He became the strongest because he won. Won, the god who overthrew his father. Zeus is the only Olympian who defeated his own father. Kronos triumphed over the Titans, an older, more primal generation of gods, survived a 10-year war that shook the cosmos itself. Zeus's lightning is more than a weapon. It is a symbol of judgment. When Zeus strikes, he does not merely destroy, he passes sentence. 2. The power of visibility. Zeus rules from the sky. Everyone sees him. Every god hears the thunder. His power lies in presence, overwhelming force, psychological dominance. Olympus exists because Zeus allows it to exist. But this creates a deadly paradox. Zeus's power depends on others recognizing him as king. And that is something Hades has never needed. Second, Hades, the power of the one who never needed to win. Hades never fought for the throne, not because he was weak, but because he chose the only domain that could never be taken from him. 1. Hades does not rule death, he owns it. A common misconception. Hades is not the god of death. He is the owner of death. Thanatos carries souls away, but Hades decides where those souls remain, or whether they are imprisoned forever. No being, not even Zeus, can escape that fate. 2. Power that requires no display. Hades does not need worshippers, temples. Prayers, he has time. Every battle Zeus wins, every empire that collapses, every god that fades into obscurity, only makes Hades's realm larger. Zeus rules while the world lives. Hades rules when everything ends. 3. The first moment of Zeus's doubt. Olympus had never questioned Zeus's power, until the day souls refused to move on. Spirits wandered. Death was delayed. The balance of the universe fractured. And Zeus realized something terrifying. Something was happening in Hades's domain that he could not control. Hera warned him. Athena analyzed it. Apollo remained silent. But Zeus, with the instinct of a ruler, did the only thing he knew. He decided to cross the boundary of the underworld himself. 4. When thunder meets shadow. For the first time in history, the sky did not answer Zeus. Lightning weakened as he descended. Light was swallowed whole. Thunder fell silent. There was no battlefield, no armies, only the stillness of death. And at its center, Hades was waiting. No anger, no challenge, just a single sentence, colder than fear itself. Do you bring thunder into a realm where nothing living remains to fear it, Zeus? V. The confrontation. Never recorded. Zeus hurled lightning. The ground split apart. But the underworld was unharmed. Hades did not strike back. He merely gestured. And Zeus saw heroes he once blessed, kings who swore loyalty to Olympus mortals, who died for ideals Zeus himself had granted all of them, standing behind Hades' throne. "Every choice you make," Hades said, "ends here." For the first time, Zeus understood. His power creates death. Hades' power possesses it. Ending of Part 1. The Fear. Zeus never admits Zeus withdrew, not defeated, but not victorious. Olympus still stood. Yet from that moment on, Zeus never again looked upon the underworld as a lesser realm. And the ancient Greeks acknowledged this truth without ever saying it aloud. They swore by Zeus's name, but they never spoke Hades' name lightly.
Part 2. The day Zeus refused to use lightning. Hypothesis 2. Zeus could destroy Ares, but chose not to. Chapter 1. The most terrifying truth in Olympus. There is a lie Olympus tells itself. That Zeus rules because he is the strongest. That lightning is the ultimate authority. That fear keeps the cosmos in line. But deep beneath the marble halls and golden thrones lies a truth no god wants to face. Power is meaningless if it cannot be used. And on one fateful day, Zeus realized that killing Ares would destroy more than it would save. That day would never be written into official myth, because it exposed the single moment when Zeus, the king of gods, chose restraint over dominance. And restraint, in mythology, is the first crack in divinity. Chapter 2. The prophecy Zeus never denied. The fates do not warn often. When they do, even Zeus listens. In this fictional hypothesis, the Moirai appear not in thunder, but in whispers, voices curling through Olympus like cold smoke. If war is erased, they say, the world will cease to move. Zeus demands clarity. The fates offer none, only visions, the visions. Zeus sees a world without Ares, no battles, no conflict, no blood. At first, it seems perfect, but then cities stop innovating, mortals stop striving. Heroes are never born. Gods are no longer needed. Without struggle, there is no growth. Without conflict, no meaning. The universe does not collapse violently. It freezes. A dead stillness, eternal and irreversible. Zeus understands the horror immediately. War is not a flaw in creation. It is one of its engines. And Ares is its embodiment. Chapter 3. Ares discovers he is untouchable. Ares learns the prophecy, not from the fates, from Zeus himself. That is the mistake. For the first time, Zeus does not threaten. He explains, and explanation is vulnerability. Ares listens in silence. Then he laughs, not the wild, bloodthirsty laugh of battle, but a slow, knowing smile. So Ares says, "I am necessary." In that moment, the balance of power shifts. Not physically, not politically. Psychologically, Ares no longer fears punishment, because he understands something Zeus does not want to admit. A king who cannot remove chaos is ruled by it. Chapter 4. The confrontation that never happened. This is the scene mythology erased. Ares storms Olympus. Not with an army, not with fire. He walks alone. The gods gather. Athena grips her spear. Hera watches Zeus carefully. The sky darkens. Lightning forms in Zeus's hand. This should be the end. Ares kneels. But not in submission. In challenge. "Strike me," he says. "End war. Silence." The thunder hesitates. And that hesitation echoes across the universe. For the first time, Zeus does not act. Chapter 5. Why Zeus lowered his hand. Zeus sees the future fracture into two paths. Path 1. He kills Ares. War becomes uncontrolled. Mortals invent cruelty beyond gods. Violence evolves faster than law. Path 2. He spares Ares. War remains contained within ritual. Violence has a face, a god, a limit. Olympus stays relevant. Zeus chooses the lesser evil, but in doing so, he sacrifices something sacred, moral authority. From that day on, Zeus rules not because he is just, but because there is no alternative. Chapter 6. Ares' True Victory. Ares rises. He does not attack. He does not gloat. He simply speaks one sentence. You cannot rule a universe without me, and Zeus does not deny it. From that moment forward, Ares is never truly punished again. War is no longer condemned, only managed. Olympus becomes complicit in violence. Ares does not overthrow Zeus. He redefines the limits of Zeus's power. That is a deeper victory than any battle. Chapter 7. The gods understand too late. Athena realizes it first. Wisdom without action is meaningless. Strategy without morality is hollow. Hera realizes it second. A king who cannot act is no longer sovereign. And Zeus understands last. He has become the guardian of a system that depends on blood. Part 3. The most dangerous god was never Ares. Hypothesis 3. Ares was the weapon. Zeus was the one who lost himself. Chapter 1. The myth was wrong about the enemy. History loves simple villains. In Greek mythology, that villain was Ares, the blood-soaked god, the reckless destroyer, the embodiment of chaos. But this final hypothesis asks a question far more uncomfortable. What if Ares was never the real danger? What if the most dangerous god was the one who believed he was righteous? This theory does not begin with war. It begins with justification. Chapter 2. The day Zeus began to sound like a tyrant. Zeus did not fall in a single moment. He eroded. At first, his lightning struck monsters, then criminals, then rebels. Eventually, it struck examples, not because they were evil, but because they were disobedient. Each strike was justified. Each punishment explained. Each death rationalized. I do this to preserve order. That sentence would become Zeus's most dangerous weapon, because once a god convinces himself that order matters more than mercy, the line between king and tyrant dissolves. Chapter 3. Ares as the mirror, not the monster. Ares noticed the change before anyone else, not because he was wise, but because he was honest. Ares never pretended his violence was noble. He never claimed blood was justice. He never hid behind law. Zeus did. In this hypothesis, Ares stops provoking Olympus. He stops rebelling. He simply watches. Every war Zeus permits, every massacre Zeus ignores, every atrocity Zeus calls necessary. And slowly mortals stop distinguishing between the god of war and the god of order. Both demand obedience. Both accept blood. Both rule through fear. Ares does not need to defeat Zeus. He lets Zeus become him. Chapter 4. The gods begin to whisper. Athena is the first to question it openly. If law requires constant violence, she asks, is it still law? Apollo follows. Prophecy no longer inspires, he says. It threatens. Hera remains silent the longest. She understands power better than anyone. And she sees it clearly. Zeus no longer rules because he is respected. He rules because the alternative is annihilation. That is not kingship. That is hostage-taking. Chapter 5. The fall that never looked like a fall. There is no rebellion, no coup, no thunderous overthrow. Zeus remains on the throne, and yet mortals stop praying for justice. They pray for mercy, a subtle shift, a devastating one. When people beg mercy from a god of order, it means they no longer expect fairness. In this hypothesis, that is the moment Zeus truly falls, not from Olympus, but from legitimacy. Chapter 6. Ares' final word. Ares approaches Zeus one last time. No armor, no weapon, just truth. You feared chaos so much, Ares says, that you became its administrator. Zeus raises lightning, but he does not strike, because for the first time he understands. Ares never wanted the throne, never wanted Olympus, never wanted rule. He wanted exposure, and Zeus gave it to him. Chapter 7. The silence after the realization. After that day, Ares fades into the background. Wars continue, but they are now justified by law, not rage. Zeus still rules, but he is no longer admired, only endured, and that, in mythology, is the most complete form of defeat. Chapter 8. Why this story was never written. This hypothesis was never canonized because it was too dangerous. It suggests that power corrupts even gods. Order can become violence with better language. The true enemy is not chaos, but certainty. Greek mythology preferred monsters. This story blames kings.
Part 2. The Underworld Awakens. When Death Stops Waiting. Opening. The war that does not begin with thunder. Wars usually begin with fire, with lightning, with screams. This one did not. It began with silence. After Zeus returned from the underworld, Olympus pretended nothing had happened. The gods resumed their feasts. Mortals continued their prayers. But something fundamental had shifted. Zeus no longer threw lightning casually. The sky hesitated before answering him. And for the first time since the Titan War, Olympus was afraid of something it could not see. Because the most dangerous truth was no longer hidden, Hades had not fought back. And that meant he was choosing the timing. When death stops, obeying it started subtly, not with gods, not with kings, but with ordinary deaths. Men fell in battle and did not arrive in the underworld. Victims of plagues lingered between breath and silence. Souls hovered at the edge of existence, unable to cross. Thanatos himself became restless. He still harvested souls, but the gates did not open. For the first time since the dawn of time, the underworld was not receiving what was promised. And Olympus realized the unthinkable. Hades was withholding death. Chart the panic of the gods. Athena was the first to understand the implication. Death was not merely an ending. It was a mechanism. Without death, war lost its meaning, sacrifice lost its weight, immortality became meaningless. Ares raged. "Let me march into the underworld," he demanded. "Let steel answer shadow." Athena stopped him with a single sentence. "You cannot kill what governs death." Apollo fell silent when his prophecies stopped resolving. The future no longer moved forward. It looped. Even Hera began to fear something she had never feared before. A king who no longer controlled consequences. Third, Zeus's first mistake. Zeus did what kings always do when power slips. He asserted it. He summoned the Moirai, the fates themselves. Clotho, Lachesis, Atropos. "Why has death slowed?" Zeus demanded. "Why does the world hesitate to end?" The fates did not bow. They did not answer directly. Atropos, she who cuts the thread, said only this: "Because the one who keeps the ledger has closed the book." Zeus understood immediately. This was not rebellion. This was accounting. Hades was reminding Olympus of something it had chosen to forget. Every god's power has a cost, and every cost is paid in death. 4. The underworld moves. Then it happened. The rivers of the underworld surged. Styx overflowed its banks. Lethe leaked forgetfulness into the dreams of gods. Souls pressed against the borders of reality. But still, Hades did not march. He did not invade. He expanded. The dead did not rise to attack Olympus. They whispered. They whispered to oracles, to madmen, to kings on their thrones at night. They whispered a single truth. The gods are not eternal. They are merely late. The realm Zeus cannot strike. Zeus gathered the gods. "Enough," he declared. "If Hades withholds death, I will take his realm from him." Lightning split the heavens as Olympus descended toward the chasm. And once again, Zeus made the same mistake. He believed power travels everywhere. The underworld did not resist. It absorbed. Lightning struck and vanished. Thunder roared and died, because the underworld was not a place. It was a state of being. You cannot conquer death. You can only arrive in it. And that was when Hades finally spoke to Zeus again. Not in anger, not in challenge, but in correction. You rule because they fear losing what they have, Hades said. I rule because everything they have eventually becomes mine. 6. The most dangerous realization. Zeus raised his thunderbolt, and for the first time he hesitated. Because he understood what striking Hades would mean. If Hades fell, who would receive the dead? If death lost its master, what would existence become? Endless suffering, endless decay, immortality as a curse. Hades was not Olympus's enemy. He was its foundation. And foundations do not threaten towers. They simply outlast them. Ending of Part 2. The balance breaks. Zeus withdrew again. This time, not in defiance, but in calculation. Olympus still stood. The underworld still waited. But something irreversible had happened. Zeus had realized he could not destroy Hades without destroying the universe that made Zeus king. And Hades had proven something even more terrifying. He did not need to win. He only needed to stop cooperating. The end of Greek mythology. Greek mythology did not die when its gods fell. It died when we stopped being afraid of them. Part 1. When the gods stopped screaming. The slow death of the sacred. Greek mythology did not end with thunder. It ended with silence. No single sword struck Zeus from Olympus. No divine war erased Athena's wisdom or Apollo's light. Instead, the gods faded the way stars disappear at dawn. Not because they are gone, but because something brighter convinces us to stop looking. To speak of the end of Greek mythology is not to describe an extinction event. It is to describe a psychological rupture. The moment when myth ceased to function as truth and became decoration. 1. Myth as a living system, not a storybook. To understand how Greek mythology ended, we must first understand what it was. Greek mythology was not literature. It was not metaphor. It was not entertainment. It was a total operating system for reality. When a storm destroyed a fleet, it was not weather. It was Poseidon's mood. When crops failed, it was not climate. It was Demeter's grief. When madness struck a king, it was not illness. It was Dionysus knocking too loudly on the soul. Mythology explained why suffering exists, why power corrupts, why beauty destroys, why fate laughs at human plans. The gods were not moral teachers. They were mirrors of the universe's indifference. And that is precisely why they became unbearable. 2. The first crack. Philosophy replaces. Fear the end began quietly, with questions. Thales asked what the world was made of. Anaximander suggested forces instead of gods. Heraclitus replaced divine will with logos, order without personality. Plato did something even more dangerous. He domesticated myth. In Plato's Republic, myths are allowed only if they teach obedience. Gods must be morally perfect. Chaos must be censored. The divine must behave. This was the first act of violence against Greek mythology, because Greek gods were never meant to be good. They were meant to be true. Zeus raped. Hera tortured. Athena punished pride. Apollo spread plague. These were not flaws. They were honest reflections of power itself. Once philosophy demanded reason, myth became suspect. Once reason demanded consistency, gods became embarrassing. Once embarrassment replaced terror, the gods were already dying. 3. Rationality as a weapon. By the Hellenistic period, myth survived, but only as symbolism. The Stoics said myths were metaphors for natural laws. The Epicureans said gods existed but did not care. The skeptics laughed. This reinterpretation did not destroy myth immediately. It hollowed it out. A god explained as metaphor is no longer feared. A god explained as allegory cannot punish you, and a god who cannot punish is no longer a god. Greek mythology depended on existential vulnerability. You were small. The universe was alive, and it could notice you at any moment. Rationality offered something seductive: safety. The price was transcendence. 4. Rome. The gods become bureaucrats. Rome did not kill Greek mythology. It nationalized it. Greek gods were absorbed, renamed, reorganized, and repurposed as state instruments. Zeus became Jupiter, less wild, more administrative. Ares became Mars, less chaotic, more patriotic. Aphrodite became Venus, less dangerous, more idealized. Roman religion demanded order, hierarchy, usefulness. The gods were no longer terrifying forces of cosmic imbalance. They were civil servants of empire. This was myth's second death: loss of unpredictability. 5. Christianity. The final blow. Christianity did not merely replace Greek mythology. It reframed the universe. Instead of many gods representing conflicting forces, there was one god claiming absolute moral authority. Instead of tragic fate, there was salvation. Instead of cyclical time, there was linear history. Instead of heroic defiance, there was obedience. Greek mythology could coexist with reason. It could survive reinterpretation, but it could not survive moral absolutism. Greek gods were immoral by design. Christian theology required moral perfection. Thus, Greek mythology was recoded as pagan, primitive, demonic, childish, not dangerous. Not true, just wrong. Once myth becomes wrong instead of terrifying, it is finished. And yet, this was not the end. It was only the end of belief. Part 2. When myth became a ghost, the afterlife of Greek mythology. Greek mythology did not vanish. It went underground. When belief dies, obsession often begins. 1. From faith to fascination. In medieval Europe, Greek mythology survived in fragments: dangerous, censored, whispered. By the Renaissance, it returned with a new mask: art. Michelangelo's bodies were pagan. Botticelli's Venus rose again from the sea. Shakespeare borrowed mythic structures without naming the gods. The gods returned, but as aesthetic objects. This was resurrection without divinity. They were admired, not obeyed, studied, not feared, painted, not prayed to, and something strange happened. The more society claimed the gods were dead, the more they appeared in dreams, art, and literature. 2. Psychology. The gods move inside the mind. Freud did something revolutionary. He turned Greek mythology inward. Oedipus was no longer a cursed king. He became a universal psychological structure. Narcissus was no longer punished by the gods. He became a diagnosis. Carl Jung went further. He declared the gods were archetypes, eternal patterns in the collective unconscious. This was both brilliant and tragic, because while it preserved the gods, it also imprisoned them. A god reduced to psychology can no longer strike lightning. A god explained is a god disarmed. And yet, modern humans began experiencing something paradoxical. They no longer believed in gods, but they lived as if ruled by them. Obsession with power, Zeus. Addiction to beauty, Aphrodite. Fear of aging, Kronos. Madness of excess, Dionysus. The gods had not left. They had simply stopped asking permission. 3. Myth without ritual, a dangerous vacuum. Ancient Greeks had rituals to contain the gods: festivals for Dionysus, temples for Athena, sacrifices for appeasement. Modern society has no containment. We worship success without Hermes, beauty without Aphrodite's warnings, war without Ares' shame, technology without Prometheus's punishment. This is why modern crises feel mythic. Economic collapse feels like divine wrath. Climate change feels like Gaia's revenge. Artificial intelligence feels like forbidden fire. We are living in mythic consequences, without mythic language. And that is far more dangerous. 4. Cinema. The gods rebranded as spectacle Hollywood, resurrected Greek mythology again, but stripped of its terror. Gods became superheroes. Tragedy became entertainment. Fate became a plot twist. In ancient myth, heroes do not win. They endure. In modern adaptations, heroes triumph. They control destiny. This is not Greek mythology. It is its domesticated corpse. A mythology without inevitability is propaganda. 5. The illusion of progress. Modern humans believe they are beyond myth. But when stock markets crash, people look for scapegoats. When pandemics strike, people seek meaning. When empires fall, people narrate destiny. Myth did not end. Myth was denied, and denial made it unconscious. And unconscious myths are the most dangerous of all. Part 3. The Real End, or When Myth Returns as Judgment. Greek mythology will truly end only under one condition: when humanity no longer needs meaning. And that has never happened. 1. The return of fate. Despite all our technology, we are still haunted by fate. Algorithms predict us. Genetics limit us. Climate ignores us. We have rebuilt the Moirai with data. We have rebuilt Chronos with time pressure. We have rebuilt Nemesis with collapse. The names changed. The structure did not. This is why Greek mythology feels strangely modern, because it never promised justice, only consequence. 2. Why Greek mythology is unkillable. Greek mythology does not offer comfort. It offers clarity. It says, power corrupts gods and humans equally. Beauty destroys those who worship it blindly. Knowledge has a price. Fate laughs last. These truths are uncomfortable. That is why civilizations try to bury them. But every time society collapses, Greek mythology returns, not as religion, but as diagnosis. 3. The final paradox. Greek mythology did not end because it was false. It ended because it was too honest. Modern narratives promise control. Greek myth promised limits. Modern ideology promises salvation. Greek myth promised tragedy. And yet, here we are, surrounded by godlike technologies, terrified of forces we created, naming disasters as if they were alive. The gods are gone, but their shadows are everywhere. 4. What the end really means. The end of Greek mythology is not a historical event. It is a choice to see the universe as manageable, a choice to deny tragedy, a choice to believe we are smarter than fate. History suggests this choice never lasts, because when certainty collapses, when systems fail, when meaning fractures, humans do what they have always done. They tell myths again. Greek mythology ends only when humanity dares to believe it has finally escaped the gods. And that moment, as every myth warns us, is precisely when the gods return.